The fluorescent lights hummed. Students fidgeted, their eyes darting between the clock and Professor Thompson, who was passionately dissecting the intricacies of the American Revolution. The air hung heavy with the weight of impending exams and the anticipation of summer break. Rows of desks, neatly arranged, faced the professor, who stood behind a worn wooden podium. Professor Thompson, a seasoned academic, was known for his engaging lectures, often peppered with anecdotes and humor. He paced back and forth, his voice rising and falling with the rhythm of the historical narrative. He pointed at a map, highlighting the strategic importance of Yorktown. He was captivating, but even the most interesting lectures can lose their luster after weeks of intense study. Sarah, a bright and inquisitive student, sat in the second row, her brow furrowed in concentration. She had always excelled in academics, driven by a thirst for knowledge and a desire to make a difference in the world. But today, something felt different. As she listened to Professor Thompson, a sense of unease grew within her. Something didn't sit right. The lecture was informative, yes, but it felt incomplete. It lacked a crucial perspective, a voice that was missing from the narrative. Sarah felt a growing urge to speak up, to challenge the status quo. She knew it would be disruptive, perhaps even disrespectful, but the thought of remaining silent felt like a betrayal of her own values. It wasn't the first time Sarah had felt this way in Professor Thompson's class. Throughout the semester, she had noticed a pattern in his lectures. They often focused on the dominant narrative, the stories of powerful men shaping history. While these narratives were undoubtedly important, they felt incomplete. They lacked the perspectives of those who had been marginalized, whose voices had been silenced. In previous lectures, Sarah had raised her hand, politely offering alternative viewpoints or asking clarifying questions. Her interventions were often met with a patronizing smile or a curt dismissal. It seemed that Professor Thompson, despite his engaging style, was not open to perspectives that challenged his own. This pattern of dismissal had created a sense of frustration among some students. They felt their perspectives were not valued, their voices not heard. The classroom, instead of being a space for open dialogue and intellectual exploration, had become a place where conformity was prized over critical thinking. Sarah had sensed this growing unease among her peers. It was in the hushed whispers during group discussions, in the hesitant glances exchanged during lectures. The students, like Sarah, felt the weight of unspoken questions, the burden of unexplored ideas. As Professor Thompson concluded his lecture on the American Revolution, a wave of restlessness swept through the classroom. Students shifted in their seats, eager for the class to end. But Sarah's mind was racing. She knew she had to speak up, to address the elephant in the room. She took a deep breath and raised her hand. The movement was sudden, unexpected. Professor Thompson, caught off guard, paused mid-sentence, his eyes settling on Sarah. "Yes?" he asked, a hint of impatience in his voice. "Professor Thompson," Sarah began, her voice trembling slightly. "Your lecture was very informative, but I couldn't help but notice that it focused primarily on the perspectives of white male historical figures." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. "I was wondering," she continued, her voice gaining strength, "if we could also explore the experiences of women, enslaved people, and indigenous communities during the American Revolution. Their stories are equally important, wouldn't you agree?" The question, simple yet profound, pierced the silence of the lecture hall. It was a direct challenge to the status quo, a bold assertion that history was not just a collection of facts, but a tapestry woven with diverse perspectives and experiences. A wave of astonishment rippled through the classroom. Students exchanged glances, surprised by Sarah's audacity. Some nodded in agreement, their faces etched with admiration. Others looked away, uncomfortable with the sudden tension. Professor Thompson stood frozen, his gaze fixed on Sarah. The color drained from his face, replaced by a flush of anger. He gripped the podium tightly, his knuckles turning white. The silence stretched on, thick with unspoken emotions. The air crackled with anticipation. The classroom, once a space of passive learning, had transformed into a battleground of ideas. The students, no longer passive observers, were now active participants in a drama that was unfolding before their eyes. Sarah met Professor Thompson's gaze, her expression resolute. She had anticipated his reaction, the inevitable pushback against her challenge. But she refused to back down. She had spoken her truth, and she was prepared to stand by it. Professor Thompson, regaining his composure, cleared his throat. "Well, Sarah," he said, his voice laced with a hint of condescension, "while those perspectives are certainly valid, they are not the focus of this particular course." He went on to explain that the syllabus was designed to cover the major events and figures of the American Revolution, and that there simply wasn't enough time to delve into every single perspective. He argued that including too many viewpoints would dilute the core narrative and confuse students. His response, though measured and seemingly reasonable, felt dismissive to Sarah. It was the same tired argument, the same reluctance to engage with perspectives that challenged the dominant narrative. It was a defense of the status quo, a justification for maintaining a narrow and incomplete understanding of history. Sarah listened patiently, but her frustration grew. Professor Thompson's words felt like a betrayal of the intellectual curiosity that was supposed to be at the heart of education. They reinforced the idea that certain voices mattered more than others, that certain stories were more worthy of being told. Professor Thompson, sensing the rising tension in the room, abruptly ended the discussion. "We'll continue this conversation next week," he said, his voice strained. Class dismissed. Students shuffled out of the classroom, their faces reflecting a mix of emotions. Some lingered, whispering amongst themselves, while others hurried away, eager to escape the charged atmosphere. The confrontation had left an indelible mark on the class, shattering the illusion of neutrality and objectivity that had once defined their academic space. Sarah gathered her belongings, her mind buzzing with thoughts. She felt a strange mix of disappointment and exhilaration. Disappointment that her question had been met with resistance, exhilaration that she had had the courage to voice it in the first place. As she walked out of the classroom, she could feel the eyes of her classmates upon her. Some offered smiles of encouragement, while others avoided her gaze. She had become, in that moment, a symbol of defiance, a catalyst for change in a system that had long resisted it. The hallway buzzed with conversations, the air thick with the residual tension from the classroom confrontation. Students huddled in small groups, their voices hushed yet animated. "Did you see Professor Thompson's face?" one student whispered, her eyes wide with astonishment. "I've never seen him so flustered. I can't believe Sarah had the guts to say that," another student chimed in, his voice filled with admiration. "Someone had to say it though. His lectures are so one-sided." The whispers reverberated through the hallway, a testament to the impact of Sarah's bold stand. Her question, once confined to the walls of the classroom, had now spilled into the corridors, sparking a wave of discussions and debates. The confrontation had shattered the silence, creating a space for students to voice their own frustrations and perspectives. It had exposed the cracks in the facade of neutrality, revealing the inherent biases that often permeated academic discourse. The impact of Sarah's question extended far beyond the walls of the classroom. News of the confrontation spread quickly across campus, becoming a topic of conversation among students and faculty alike. Some professors, long accustomed to unchallenged authority, felt threatened by Sarah's audacity. They saw her question as a sign of disrespect, a challenge to their expertise and academic freedom. They worried that her actions would embolden other students to question their authority, leading to chaos and disruption in the classroom. Other professors, however, welcomed Sarah's challenge. They saw it as a sign of critical thinking, a willingness to engage with complex issues and challenge established norms. They recognized that education was not about indoctrination, but about fostering intellectual curiosity and encouraging students to think for themselves. The incident sparked a campus-wide debate about the role of education in a diverse and rapidly changing world. It forced professors to re-evaluate their teaching methods, to consider the perspectives of all students, and to create a more inclusive and equitable learning environment. The classroom confrontation, though initially disruptive, ultimately became a teachable moment for both students and educators. It highlighted the importance of open dialogue, critical thinking, and the inclusion of diverse perspectives in education. Sarah's courage in speaking up inspired other students to find their own voices. They realized that education was not about passively absorbing information, but about actively engaging with ideas, challenging assumptions, and contributing to the ongoing conversation of knowledge creation. Professor Thompson, though initially resistant to Sarah's challenge, eventually recognized its value. He realized that his lectures, while informative, had been lacking in inclusivity and had failed to acknowledge the experiences of all students. The incident prompted him to re-evaluate his teaching methods, to incorporate more diverse perspectives into his curriculum, and to create a more welcoming and inclusive classroom environment. The classroom confrontation served as a powerful reminder that education is not a passive process, but an active dialogue. It demonstrated the transformative power of a single voice, the courage it takes to challenge the status quo, and the ripple effects that can result from speaking truth to power. Sarah's story is a testament to the importance of fostering critical thinking, encouraging open dialogue, and embracing diverse perspectives in education. It is a call to action for both students and educators to create learning environments where all voices are valued, all perspectives are considered, and all students feel empowered to contribute to the ongoing pursuit of knowledge and understanding. Subscribe to our channel, like, share, and comment.